Hello and welcome to Random Things. This is Ty, and as you saw from the intro video, I just remodeled this kitchen. And so for this video, I want to talk about the planning process for a remodel like this and what to expect in terms of cost. Because that's always one of the scarier things is when you go and talk to a contractor and they give you a price, or you go to a big box store and you get a price, you're not really sure what the cost should be. And so it's hard for you to gauge whether or not you're getting a good deal and what have you. So I want to talk about how much does it cost for me to do this, this remodel. Now, before I begin, I will tell you that I did go to a big box store and sit down with them, and they laid out basically the same design and they gave me a price. And what they gave me was $8,500 for the cabinets and $4,500 for the quartz countertop. Now, for $8,500 for the cabinets, it's their standard solid wood face, but it's a particle board box, right? So if you want to upgrade to a half-inch plywood box with a solid wood face, you add about another $1,500. And so that would have been $10,000 for a set of cabinets not installed. Installation would cost somewhere around $4,000 to $5,000 just to hang the cabinets. Okay. Now the $4,500 for the quartz countertop, that is the install price. They don't sell just the quartz slab. Now I'm going to give you a comparison. What I paid was $4,200 for this cabinet, which is a solid wood with half-inch plywood. So these are solid wood cabinets and not particle board. And then I bought these slabs. These are 2 feet by 9 feet quartz slabs, and they ran me $380 each, and I got 3 of them, right? And what you get is you also get a 6-inch backsplash, so that's included. But of course, it's not installed, so I have to cut it for the sink and cut the seam joints, right? Which this is actually my very first kitchen remodel. So it's the very first time I hung cabinets and the very first time I did a countertop. So obviously it's not perfect because it was my first time. So for those who are like experts in hanging this and watching this video, please be gentle with me. But for those who are thinking about doing their own kitchen themselves and want to just kind of get in there and do the work and save some money, because as you can see, just on the cabinets and countertop alone, I saved roughly
$15,000.
Of course, I'm not counting my own labor because my own labor is free, right? And so if you have some kind of desire to get into and try to do it yourself, you can probably do this actually quite a bit more affordable than you actually think, right? Now, the price I gave you was just for the cabinets and the countertop. Again, it's $4,200 and $380 each. Now, these are what they call RTA cabinets. It stands for Ready to Assemble, right? And so what you do is you buy these cabinets in boxes. Now, here's a picture of me driving these cabinets down to the remodel. And then you have to assemble it yourself, right? So if you Google RTA cabinets, you're going to find places that will sell RTA cabinets. I will give you a link to the place I got these cabinets. If you are in Southern California, these were specifically bought in by Truss Cabinets and Tile. They're in Westminster, California. Great place, kind of hole in the wall, but awesome pricing. And then they designed it and laid it out for me in like 10 minutes. And so you get them in a box. You have to assemble it. It's like IKEA furniture. Now, if you go to this place I went to, it didn't come with instructions. So you're going to have to figure it out. I was a little nervous at first, but once I got into it, it actually wasn't hard at all. And so if you're pretty comfortable assembling IKEA furniture, then you have no problems doing this yourself. The only hard one, the really hard one was the Lazy Susans. Right, here's a little picture. Right, so assembling the lazy Susan, that's a little tricky. So you have to do some YouTube searches for lazy Susans, and they'll help you do that assembly. But the reason I point out that the price is just for the cabinets and the countertop is because it's actually quite a bit more cost to the remodel than you actually expect. Right, when they quote you $20,000 for a remodel for cabinets and countertops, they're assuming everything else is perfect, right? And all they got to do is hang the cabinets and install the countertop. But if you want to, if you actually, oh, look, new dishwasher, it's working, it's done. This is weird. It pops out on its own. Anyway, I think it does that so that it lets the steam out, and I think it's supposed to do that. I'm gonna have to Google that. It's from Costco. Never seen it like that, but anyway, sorry about that. So where was I? Oh yeah. So when you are planning out a remodel, right, and they give you that price, that's assuming everything is perfect, right? So when we did this particular remodel, things were not perfect, right? It wasn't just building the cabinets and hanging them up and slapping on the countertop. We actually had to do quite a bit of work. First, we had to demo, right? So you got to plan out demo costs, right? So demo costs roughly cost around $1,000 for you to demo. Now, that's because I paid somebody, but if you're going to do it yourself, tilting fees is roughly $100 a ton. And so it's probably like $2,000, 2,000 pounds of stuff when you rip out a whole kitchen, including any drywall and cabinets, maybe a ton and a half. And so you're looking at, $150 in tilt fees. If you have a truck, no big deal. If you don't have a truck, you have to rent, like, I don't know, a U-Haul. You throw everything in the back of the U-Haul, take it to the dump, right? So you're talking about a $250 demolition if you're doing it yourself, right? If you're capable of doing it yourself and you're doing it yourself. At least that would have been my estimate. But I paid somebody because I was lazy and I needed it done quick. So it cost around $800. Then, during the demo, we realized that the linoleum was on top of old linoleum and some wood, and you have different flooring, right? And so dealing with different flooring is difficult, especially when you're trying to lay down cabinets and you want it to sit kind of flat, right? And so you need to think about how you're going to put down flooring afterwards, right? Leveling the floor, and this is actually on a raised foundation, and so we have to think about how you're going to level the floor, right? So you got to plan for that. The other thing is, we wanted this to be a smart kitchen in the sense that the lights is hooked up to Alexa and it can turn on and off and dim. Alexa, turn on kitchen lights. Well, a lot of times in old homes, light switches don't have a neutral. And to have a smart switch, because the switch itself needs power and it's not just, something that connects the hot, you need a neutral wire. So if you don't have a neutral wire, you're going to have to figure out how to get a neutral wire into your switch box, right? And so then, the other thing you need to think about is the number of outlets, right? Where are the outlets conveniently located? Are they near a water source? So they have to be GFI protected, all that. And so you have to think about how you're going to rewire. In my particular case, we went ahead and rewired the whole thing, right? But that also means that I had to tear down all the drywall, which actually makes it a lot easier, because when you do that, you can tear down the drywall, you can run the wires more efficiently, you can put up insulation, and then put it back, right? And when you have all new drywall, it's actually a lot easier to mud than if you are trying to do patching, okay? Then you got to paint, right? You want to paint all of it. Now, I know some people just paint the areas that's not covered by the outlet. For me, which is a lot easier since I demoed everything and the room is empty, right? Just get out a air sprayer, which you can get a cheap one at Harbor Freight. It's like $180. right? And then you just spray the whole room, right? Just make sure you put up plastic, and then you get it done really quick, right? Now that we painted, and before we put the cabinets on, you got to think about the flooring, right? Besides just leveling it, and what I did was I put down self-leveler to kind of cover all the unevenness. And then after that, what you see here is actually vinyl planks, right? So this waterproof for a kitchen area. Alternatively, you could look at tile. And also there's pros and cons to each, right? The biggest pro to tile is that it's very heavy duty, and if the room's empty, you just tile the whole thing, and then the cabinet sits on top of the tile. Okay. Now, when you do vinyl planks, you cannot put the cabinets on top of the floating floors or even laminate floors, right? You can't put the cabinets on floating floors because the floor is floating and it's moving. And so you don't want to put the cabinets on the floating floor, so you got to have to plank around it. So you save some money by doing that, but it creates other issues for you when you're actually doing the flooring, because what can happen is your dishwasher, you want to plank behind it or else it's going to drop, but then it may not fit because you lose a little bit of height because of the flooring, and you have just 36 inches underneath the cabinet to shove a dishwasher. And some dishwashers, they're just so tight, you got to be careful. And specifically is the Bosch 800 series. That one is like taller than most dishwashers, and so if you decide to put down cabinets and then tile around it, it actually makes it hard to shove that Bosch dishwasher in. So that's something to think about. Okay, and then you also have to think about the hardware, right? That doesn't come with the cabinets. Buy hardware, and then all the tools you need to actually put in the cabinets, right? And also cut the countertop. So all those are additional costs. And then when you open the walls, right, you may need to do some plumbing work behind the walls because you may have to shift things around. And so those are all things that you need to think about when you're planning out the job. So I talked about this was $4,200 for the cabinets and $380 a piece for the slabs, right? So that's roughly $5,500 for the cabinets and countertop. But I probably spent another $7,000 on everything else. That's like the actual paint, lights, wire, outlets, boxes, drywall, right? Flooring, the self-leveler, right? That's actually pretty expensive stuff, actually, the self-leveler. The flooring, the transitions, the door handles, all the screws, and all the tools that you need if you don't have all the tools to do the job. And for me, I have my power drill. Those are something that I primarily use, but there were a few moments you need some other specialty tools. For example, you do need a table saw, and you do need a compound miter saw. Those are two saws that you kind of need. You need to think about a jigsaw, because when you do the vent, right, you got to cut a hole in the bottom of the cabinet, right? So you need a jigsaw to cut a hole so that your vent stack could come through. But that's another thing you got to think about. You got to think about HVAC, right? And that adds to the cost. And so even though the cabinets cost $4,200 and the countertop costs $1,300, right? You have to factor in maybe another $6,000-$7,000 for everything else, because there is just a lot of other things that you gotta buy in order to finish the kitchen, right? And so if you hire a contractor, like, they may have quoted you 20 grand for cabinets and countertops. That assumes everything else is perfect and you don't need flooring, right? You have the existing tile and they just have to drop the cabinets on the existing tile, right? If you don't, cost is going to go up, right? So you're going to go from $20,000 potentially all the way up to $35,000, $40,000 for a kitchen remodel. So all in all, this kitchen remodel is probably done under, I would say 12 grand, right? Total number of working days, well, I've had a lot of issues in the last couple of months, so I wasn't able to just focus, But I would say if you're able to focus, you can probably get this done by yourself in about 20 days. But it took me around 3 months because I could only do it one day a weekend because my wife broke her elbow, my mom got sick and was in the ICU. So I had to really slow down. And this sink was a major pain in behind getting. And so with that, I'm going to save that for the next video. I'm going to go through some of these lessons learned with this remodel that you really need to, I really think is helpful to share because, boy, I wish I would have known that when I was getting into this remodel, right? So I'll share that on a separate video because this video is getting a little long now. So with that, as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next random video. Actually, it won't be random. The next video will be lessons learned on this kitchen remodel.